All right, today we're going to get into a debate between Andrew Wilson and Vegan Gaines about dinosaurs. So I'm interested in seeing what this is about. I've never seen this before, so we're going to look. I'm going to look at it for the first time with you, and let's just get right into it.
By the way, this is the same guy who isn't sure if evolution exists. Like,
What does that?
I'm
what
not
does
sure
that
if
do?
I'm not sure if human beings walked with dinosaurs.
Why? I don't understand. How's that an argument? It's just an argument from incredulity. From incredulity, you're just like, well, because I think that he
Well,
questions evolution,
it
which
shows
by the
you
way,
are
evolution is
remarkably biased.
towards what? Towards
Whatever
evidential,
you want
towards
to be
evidential
true.
interpretation.
You look. You want. It's clear that you have a bias in confirming the creation myth. So when I ask you, do you think humans walked with dinosaurs? Do you think we evolved from apes? Well, I don't know. I don't think there's enough evidence to really rule out whether or
Yeah.
not humans walked
What's
with
wrong with that?
dinosaurs.
That's actually the scientific purview.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it
Okay.
is.
Why don't you find an archaeologist and
Mhm.
maybe debate that topic?
Hang on.
I'd love to
They
see it.
work. Well, here's what would happen, and I would just say this is the best theory that you guys have. So you treat it as scientific fact because it is for the preponderance of evidence you do have. You're going to treat it as a fact until a new theory comes along. But that doesn't actually make it true, correct? And he'll say that's correct. Doesn't actually make it true. We will act as though it is true until a new theory replaces this one because that's how science works. Unlike you, I know the scientific process. Unlike you, I know how to interpret data. Unlike you, I understand how the preponderance of evidence works. Me saying I'm unsure is the most fucking scientific thing I can say. You saying you are sure is the most unscientific
thing. Do you
thing.
think it's a reasonable stance to say we have to uncover every single fossil on Earth through every single sedimentary layer to absolutely 100% confirm human beings have never walked with dinosaurs
No,
to confirm
I didn't
that
say
they
that.
have not, in fact? Okay, so then what's your position? Like, what evidence would you need to confirm that humans have not walked with dinosaurs?
Well, no. So when you're talking about this, I'm not offering a threshold for what would be a convincing threshold that human beings walked or didn't walk with dinosaurs. All I'm saying is that the evidence is inconclusive thus far to prove that they did, regardless of whatever my threshold would or would not be, or anybody else's. Like, how do you standardize that threshold anyway? It would just have to be evidence which is convincing to the point where it would convince most people this was the case. At this point, we're not there. If we were, it would be a scientific fact and not a theory.
What's wrong with that? That sounds logical to me. That you use the scientific method to and keep using it until it either disproves or proves a fact. I mean, that's pretty much how it works, right? I don't understand. Andrew's argument is there's not enough of there's more study that needs to go on in order for this to be a fact that humans didn't run around with dinosaurs or whatever. But then again, Vegan Gaines is like, well, how much proof do you need? We have this right here. How much more do you need? And, pretty much Andrew's saying it's just not enough for him to be convinced.
Right. Okay. So it's a complete coincidence that as you go down through the sedimentary layers, you see the disappearance of mammals, period. And then you start seeing dinosaurs. And then if you go deeper down, you see less and less complex organisms. But you're telling me humans walked with dinosaurs.
I didn't say that.
It's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, nobody would dispute it's a possibility.
Yes.
Who?
There are many people that would dispute it's possible.
No,
they
would just say that the evidence is pointing to the fact right now that they didn't. They would not say that it's
Okay,
an impossibility. That's insanity. Like, that's not how any of this works, bro.
Look, if your epistemic standards demand that you can't confirm humans have not walked with dinosaurs, there's clearly nothing I can show you.
Okay, first of all,
that would convince you
my
that red
epistemic
meat contributes to
standards,
cancer risk.
for the theory of knowledge, don't say that. One, I'm explaining just the scientific method and how science processes evidence when it makes claims. So what scientists are saying is, right now, here's what evidence shows us. So we're going to postulate a theory based on that evidence and act as though that theory is true, unless more compelling evidence comes later, and then we will modify the theory from there. But they're not saying that this is a fact, and I'm not saying it's not a fact. You could be right. I'm just saying that you can't assert that you're right, because that would not be a truth claim. Like, you can't say this is true, because it's not. That would be not correct. That would be unscientific.
Okay, Andrew, we have a very robust fossil record. And we know when mammals first appear in the fossil record. It is far before human beings. It
So
has been
far.
confirmed with science.
No,
Humans have not walked with dinosaurs.
Bro,
I can assure you.
It has not been confirmed. That would be inaccurate, wrong language.
Okay, well, how about we make $1 million bet? If hopefully Brian Johnson develops, some sort of, infinity lifelong serum, so we'll never die. And hopefully in 1,000 years, when we have the technology to scan Earth and, go through all the sedimentary layers and find all the fossils, how about we have a bet right now, in 1,000 years from now, when we're cyborgs or something, if they find humans have never walked with dinosaurs, you owe me $1 million. You want to take that bet?
Sure. I'll bet you $1 million 1,000 years in the future when we have scanning technology. That we'll be able to make much better scientific assertions about these things and the evidences and the claims that we're making. What I'm saying right now is that
let's account for inflation.
We have
inflation.
We have an incomplete right now. We have an incomplete fossil record. That is the truth. And the truth of the matter is that it's going to take a lot more digging in the ground before we can replace the current theory with new ones. And by the way, evolutionary theory is always changing. Everything from microevolution to DNA sequencing. This is all new technology, by the way. This is not, these things are, it's all cutting edge right now. We don't actually know these things. When you say, when you say
no such thing as microevolution.
When you say, yeah, well, there you go, right? But here's the thing. There is theory behind microevolution.
There is no microevolution. It's just evolution.
Okay. But
here we go. That's a silly argument. But anyway, what's wrong with the approach Andrew's having here? I mean, he's not saying it fact or not. He's not. He even said that you could be possibly right. But right now, there's not enough of the, there's a lot of Earth out there, man. This is what gets me about the fossil records and blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of Earth to cover. You would have to do testing all over the Earth to prove one way or the other. You can't just go find a spot. Oh, I'm assuming they're in Africa or wherever, and testing these things. Okay, you didn't find nothing there, but I've seen footage of a guy that owns a gold mine in Alaska that literally they get dinosaur bones, right? They're compacted in this mound of ice and they melt it and he gets it. And he actually showed, like he brought, it was on the Joe Rogan show. The guy comes on Joe Rogan every year. He literally brought into there and it showed that there was in the bones on these dinosaur bones sawing. Now, what other than a human would be sawing into dinosaur bones. So there's some evidence there that humans were around dinosaurs at some point. Right there. I just I don't get it. Anyway,
You agree with me that there's theories behind microevolution, right?
No, that's
No.
just creationist nonsense. Creationists developed that term.
Okay, so what happens when the mindset changes of a gradual change to the entirety of a species over an elongated period of time? That was the original set value of Darwinian evolution. But evolutionists do postulate that there are species in which rapid changes happen in a very short period of time.
Yes, that's both evolution.
So when I say microevolution, I'm referring to that form of the process, which is a
There's
recent
no
stop,
difference in the
stop, bro. That's
process. It's
but
just speed of
the
the
theory
adaptation.
is a recent development. That was not original
No, it's
Darwinian
not.
theory. Okay, so then show me when the
Well,
theory.
by the way,
Show me.
when you say rapid evolution, like a lot of people refer to the Cambrian explosion as rapid evolution. That's a period of like billions of years.
Yeah, but no. They're saying that species can, within some generations, and like you can point to insects where this could happen, for instance, perhaps,
Sure.
or things like this, where it's not an elongated process where it should be. So, like if an insect lived, let's say, I don't know, like 2 minutes, let's just say, you'd be able to get through tons and tons and tons of generations long before you would with elongated evolution.
So
So, hang
simpler
on.
life forms may be able to make faster adaptations,
Yeah,
especially if
or
they have
evolve
a shorter life.
much faster. Original Darwinian evolution did not postulate.
wait a minute. Don't back out of it now, cuz you literally said that's just a creation method, a recent create. Now you're saying, oh, sure, maybe these little insects could actually uh do like you're saying. Well, maybe you have a point. Won't you just admit Andrew's right? I mean, come on, man. It's dishonest.
This evolution has advanced and the theory has advanced. What I'm saying to you, right? And perhaps I can grant you this, that when I use microevolution, I'm using it incorrectly. That could be the case. I'm just saying to you that the theories of evolution have advanced and they no longer hold to the same theories they held to. They just don't. So for you to dispute that's absurd, right? I can literally give you a timeline of evolutionary
I don't
theories.
what okay, what aspect of evolutionary theory has been debunked?
Here, let's go through a timeline of evolution theory. It's not debunked. It's not that they're debunking the previous thing. They're saying
Okay,
we have
well,
new
what has
evidence which
changed?
modifies the things that we previously believed about this theory.
Well, I know there's I know there's epigenetic changes, there's sexual preference, things like that that are being added to the theory to explain evolutionary changes, but the theory itself hasn't really changed. Like the mechanism in which evolution through natural selection, it's being added to. Natural selection isn't the only mechanism in
Oh,
which it
so the theory
occurs.
changed?
Well, the theory didn't fundamentally
Yeah,
change.
it
They've
was
added to
literally.
the theory.
Yes, that's what I just said. Literally, I
Okay.
just said they took
Okay,
previous
well then I
theories,
misunderstood you.
they take previous theories, they add to them. When they add to
Okay.
them, they come up with a new theory. That's how it works.
Okay, well I misunderstood you.
And based on
So
previous evidence in this in all science works this way. It has to necessarily, because it's designed to falsify itself if necessary, to falsify previous conclusions in order to adapt to new conclusions, in order to make new theories. Like it all works this way.
okay,
All of it works this way. It's very
okay.
important though so that's why when you say it's a fact, right? Be very careful when you say that we know this is a fact. When you peddle that, to me, it sounds like gobbledygook. It sounds like you're saying, I don't know shit about science. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah,
That's why people say things like scientists believe. They say that because they don't want to say we know, you know?
I get you. Back on the health topic.
Okay.
Um, I don't know if you'd be convinced by some of the research on atherosclerosis, so like congestive heart disease. Um, Elevated LDL cholesterol is indisputably linked to heart disease. People with elevated LDL have increased risk of heart disease, which is our number one killer across the world. Vegan diets do tend to lower LDL, and thus the primary cause of heart disease
Yes.
by lowering LDL.
Yeah, I would
So
have to
they
look.
tend to be lower in saturated fat.
I'm not a
Uh,
nutritionist.
This and I would like to add that what he's saying right now has been flipped on its head through the recent studies of the carnivore diets and keto diets. You are more healthy. That it has come out since I'm assuming, I don't know how long this video has been out, that it's important to have the fats from the meat. Vegan diets starve your body. This is just this is it's like this guy is just spouting. It's just like politics. They have this narrative they spin and spit out shit that don't make any sense. But that the people that know put out a message and people just regurgitate it. And this is just absurd. The science on this has come out to be different.
So I'd have to
cholesterol.
look at
Sure.
this study. So I wasn't arguing when I'm arguing this, I'm arguing
Yeah,
about
sure.
correlates versus non-correlates. But you'd have to actually send me the data so that I could evaluate it, which I'm happy to do.
I'd also like to add, since this is a science guy, and he's talking about pretty much evolution and how we evolved from whatever the hell we evolved from. What did he think we ate over what they claim is hundreds of thousands of years? What do you think? You can look at it, and they can tell you when humans, according to their science, started farming. Before that, they would hunt their food and eat meat. How is it that they survived for hundreds of thousands of years off of a mostly meat diet, and all of a sudden we get into this modern time of today, and all of a sudden meat bad, fat bad, heart disease? Why didn't the human species, Homo sapiens, die out over those hundreds of thousands of years of consuming mostly meat and fat? Come on, this is just idiotic.
Okay, sure. I'll just send it to you after
Yeah.
the chat.
Yeah, that's fine.
But do you dispute that we would be able to reduce zoonotic disease transmission if we move to a completely plant-based food system?
Well, yeah, you would necessarily have less animals. So yes,
Right.
if
So
that is
what
the
would be
case. But if you
so if
eliminated
we if
if you eliminated all biological animals, you would have none, right?
well, if you eliminated them from the food system?
If you eliminated all biological animals from planet Earth, you would have zero, right?
Yes, but I'm talking specifically from the food system.
No. So I would dispute that. I would dispute that because I would say that there could be ways of us using animal husbandry, which could greatly reduce this to the point where even if we had a plant-based diet, the system and effects of disease would be the same. There's proper ways in order to do that to reduce that anyway. So you just saying to remove them
Well,
from the so
what do you mean by
I'll
that?
give you a point, but then I'm going to take the point. So I will say if you right this second removed all animals from the food system, yes, it would reduce health-based agents or problematic health-based agents of disease if you did it overnight. Okay. However, what I would also say is wait, you could also reduce all of those same diseases by not eliminating animals from the diet at all, just by the various ways in which that you were able to raise that food in a way of not handling it or things like this.
So, are you talking about like a future society where it's completely automated somehow?
No, I'm just talking about if you have to revamp the entire food chain for veganism, which you would have to do. There's no doubt about that. If you would have to revamp the entire food chain for veganism by eliminating all animal based products tomorrow, okay, in order to greatly reduce the health risk, I'm postulating that we could also greatly reduce the health risk by just revamping animals in the food supply. I don't think, in other words,
Right,
it's
but
necessary for you to eliminate animals to eliminate the disease.
right, but how? Like the only way I could see is with some sort of new technology where we could like eradicate the flu virus from all
No, you
planet
can just
Earth
do
or
it
something.
via handling. I mean, this is something. What causes a lot of this is antibiotics and factory farming. You could probably greatly reduce this by, I don't know what the percentage is, but let me just like postulate one. Let me just say, I would say that you could probably reduce this by up to 90% just by the way in which animals were handled.
The bubonic plague was spread in Europe before factory farming ever existed.
Yeah, we
That
don't.
wiped out like nearly half of all human civilization.
Yeah, I agree. But that was due to animal handling.
So you're saying we should develop
It was the same thing with
a
smallpox. Like that would be even better example. Smallpox came from cows and the transmission of cows
yeah,
because of the
sure.
way in which we handled it. But those people had no bearing on the fact that these diseases were coming from the animals. They lived with the animals. They shit in the same pots as the animals. They
Oh,
would,
I'm not so sure about that. I think they did.
What do you mean you're not so sure about that? The what Andrew's saying right here is facts, dude. This concept that because of this modern time that we live in, we have all this technology, we have encyclopedias in our hands, we have dictionary in our hands, we have every bit of information that has come to today, that in our hands we can educate ourselves on handling meat. There's freaking videos on sanitary ways to handle meat. They didn't have that back then. They didn't have that. They were learning on the fly. I mean, how can you say Andrew's wrong about that? That's exactly what was going on back then.
Did at least when the smallpox vaccine was developed, they knew it came from animals.
yeah, by that point, but that wasn't very long ago.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
When
no,
you're talking about like the bubonic plague being spread in Europe, you're talking about the Middle
they
Ages.
probably had.
They had no idea. I mean, these guys were stuffing flowers in the nose of their masks
Well,
because they thought bad smells is what caused diseases to spread.
they so no. If you look at some of the literature at the time, they did know it spread from person to person. They did have quarantine
No, but
recommendations
they
where
didn't know its
people shouldn't.
origin was animals. That's my point.
They did also seem to know that like rats in
That rats
particular.
carried
I
it,
think they
but not.
yeah.
Yeah, that rats carried it, but
Um
that's not the understanding that the pathogen inside the animal can mutate until it
yeah,
jumps to the
yeah,
person.
I
Like
understand that.
they
They had a
didn't
very
understand those
rudimentary
concepts. We
understanding.
do understand those concepts, and we can make mitigations for those. We can
Yeah,
make
but like what?
mitigations. Well, I just told you some of it is antibiotic, a lot of it is reducing factory farm. We can that would reduce greatly these diseases. And here's a big one: stopping China from eating random bats and shit like that they just
Well,
find
yeah.
on the fucking ground. A lot of the pathogens happen from people eating wild animals, which carry disease, and things like that. Animal
Yeah,
husbandry,
that's
for the most
HIV.
part, is pretty safe. It's pretty safe. The problem happens when you're eating these wild animals and bats and fucking crazy shit like that. Not because
Well, flu is probably the most dangerous, and that originated from waterfowl.
yeah, we have no
Um,
idea actually if that pathogen, where that pathogen eradicated, it could have been with us, uh, from time immemorial. We have no idea. No
well,
clue.
it originated. We're pretty damn certain it originated in waterfowl. So it originally would be spread by
But did we give it
geese
to
like pooping in the
them?
water.
Did we give it to them? Did it
No,
mutate? We gave it
they
to
probably
them.
gave it to us.
How do you know? That's the problem when it comes to this. We don't know if we had a pathogen which mutated and then they got it and then we got a different form of it back. Like you don't know.
I'm not a fucking scientific expert on anything, but I think
So here's another thing that irritates me here. When it comes to questioning like this, like, you know, Andrew's doing to him, the response, because he was arrogant as shit a while ago about it. We know this and we know that. Now it goes from we know this to I'm not an expert in this field. I'm not an expert. But a while ago you were acting like you were a damn expert. Just saying.
you can determine from like the genome or something of the virus that they're pretty sure it originated in waterfowl.
It's possible.
It's like geese, ducks.
I mean, it's possible. I have no idea. I'm just saying that you can greatly reduce the harm when it comes to disease from animals right this second by just reducing the fact that of people eating wild bats and shit in foreign nations, and restricting shipping which, by the way, let me just point this out, that even if in the United States we did go full vegan, these pathogens would still come into the United States from foreigners. So would you reduce immigration?
Yes.
Yeah, so you would stop immigration because you'd have to.
Well, what's kind of interesting is H. pylori infections are increasing, and that's due to immigration. When it comes to like outbreaks like the coronavirus, that definitely there was that initial reaction where immigration was halted for a period of time. Like you absolutely, when it comes to pandemic disease outbreak, you need to halt immigration. But that is
Yeah.
that is a
Well,
consideration.
no, I
that we
mean
have to
just
have now
for
with
any
immigration.
outbreak, right? These diseases, many of them come in from foreigners, not because of the way we're handling our food here, not because of the way we're handling factory farming here. They're originating from foreign goods with the way that they're handling them. It's like clearly we can reduce this drastically without ever removing animals from the food chain at all.
Yep.
Clearly we can do that. Like there's no doubt that we can drastically reduce this.
Yep.
In fact, inside of meat packing plants, like when I was working, I won't tell you which plant I was working for, but they would go out and test daily for listeria. They would test daily for all sorts of pathogens, illnesses, things which could potentially jump over to people. Like this, we can clearly mitigate disease transmission when it comes to animal husbandry. And a lot of it comes in from off of our shores. So I feel like, I don't just feel like, I know that we can keep animals inside of the food supply and drastically reduce, if not eliminate, these diseases.
So there's definitely ways of reducing risk by changing the food system, but the most effective way would be to just move to a completely plant-based food system. Like it would eliminate the
I'm
risk.
not sure that that's the most effective way, one. And two, there's no guarantee that if we began mass consumption of GMO vegetables, that we wouldn't get illnesses, foodborne illnesses from those that we can't
No,
These genetic modified vegetables that we eat today don't have the same nutrition value as you growing it in your backyard with like heirloom seeds. It's a reduced product, and if you can't, I'm gonna tell you right now, in my belief, if you got rid of meat and everybody in the United States became a vegan over a short period of time, it wouldn't take long. Then there would be no more United States of America. We would die out. I'm telling you. Look, the nutrition value of vegetables is no longer any good, and because of all the genetic modifying, the erosion of our soils, the the pesticides that these farmers put out, and it drains off and it seeps in, and the plowing of the fields instead of building layers, it's just depleted. So before we start saying all this bullshit, you need to really do your research on the nutrition value of vegetables itself right now.
Evidence whatsoever that
It's non-predictive. It's called a known unknown. So the thing is that if we continue to use GMO-based plants, we have a known unknown, and the unknown is how much will this affect us?
The primary reason we moved to using GMO plants is to feed animals.
That's not the only reason.
No, it's not the only reason. Ass clown.
Most GMOs, the majority of GMOs are fed to animals.
That's bullshit.
Bullshit.
Do you think that your bananas are supposed to not have seeds in them, bro? Bananas have seeds.
They're not GMO.
I'm sorry. How do they get the seeds out of the bananas? Yes, they are GMOs. What do you mean?
No, they're not. Bananas are not GMOs.
Yes, they have genetically modified bananas. I don't know what to tell you. Okay. You want me to pull them up for you?
Okay. So, dude, modern bananas are a mutant species that were discovered on some island, and there are 2 variations. One of them died out, and there's only one variation that's still in existence.
Yeah, so the GM bananas are created by inserting a gene from the wild banana into the Cavendish banana. It removes the seeds. The gene's chosen to give banana resistance to specific threats such as disease, pests. GMO bananas are created as a backup plan to protect the banana industry from threats like disease and pests. They've used them multiple times. Like, you're fucking just wrong, bro.
You're talking. Okay, are you talking about a new GMO banana that was developed?
Yeah, I'm saying that GMOs are introduced into the food supply specifically for all sorts of different reasons. They literally will use it to genetically modify food.
I'm just trying to clarify. Were you making a claim that modern Cavendish bananas were originally developed as a GMO food?
No,
or are you
no. I'm explaining that GMOs are entered into the food supply for a variety of reasons, not just for feeding animals. It's just not just for. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, no problem. But
I misunderstood. I thought you were talking about something completely different.
It's not just to feed animals. That's my point.
Okay.
And I don't even think you dispute that. So, but this is what I'm saying is, like, ultimately, as you kind of go through this, it's like, it seems like we can kind of have our cake and eat it too. And we're definitely not going to take animals out of the food supply with how much benefit we get from that. If we could, like, drastically reduce the disease to 95% or 90%, what would your case then be?
The issue is we don't really get any benefit. They're less efficient. We have to use more land than we would if we were just growing like corn or soybeans or other crops. They don't produce as much calories, based on like energy input and land use.
Oh my God. This guy knows nothing about this. I understand he may know some concepts of food and nutrition values and stuff, but he's lost his mind right now. Lost his mind. This is a biased. Earlier, he talked about Andrew being biased because of his beliefs in Christianity when it comes to dinosaurs. He's using a bias right now because he can't understand that eating a steak is more nutritious for you, period, than whatever. Do you realize how many vegetables you'd have to eat to accumulate the same nutrition value as a steak? You'd have to eat all day. This is absurd. This is absurd.
They're also often not as good for you as plants.
Oh my God.
Like soybeans, for instance,
it's trash.
Anti-cancer properties where they protect against breast prostate cancer. Animal products do not have those properties.
We've also got to think about too that, like, certain foods, that are vegetables. Okay, for example, soybeans, beans, potatoes, uh, wheat. All those things are not good for people's nutrition, especially if you're fighting diabetes. Because when you consume those foods, it gets in your system and turns into sugars and spikes your insulin, where a steak doesn't.
And in fact, like we were arguing before, they might actually contribute to cancer. They lack fiber, and fiber is massively beneficial for protecting against cancer. Like plants also lower cholesterol. They have less saturated fat in general. They have zero cholesterol that again protects against heart disease. Seems to have a benefit for diabetes. So
No,
like we're not really getting any utility
no.
from eating meat.
That's not the only use for animals.
Yes.
There's a side
What
use.
else is there?
So let's stop. Let's start with this. This is a question I've always wanted to ask a vegan, and this one actually kind of does baffle me, right? Because we can keep going down the like cost benefit analysis, and I'm actually happy to do that, but this one does baffle me. You do realize that all machinery and all mechanisms which make the world turn right now require electricity. I mean, all of them.
Okay.
That we live in an entire world based upon electricity. People can't even get by without it. They don't know how to heat
Okay.
themselves, cool themselves, things like this, really without it. What do you do if the lights went off? With it, you would have to become completely reliant on animal assistance for labor again. You would have to. That would include for growing your vegan based diet, your plowshares, everything else. They would all go back to being horse driven, mule driven, things like this, all of them. If you have, in other words, if a grid goes down, you would have to rely on animal labor in order to even get by. And you know, there was a great, this was recent. I read a book of a guy who studied the Amish. I can send it over to you. And they have some of the kind of more trusty steeds left who that are around. We used to have a lot in World War One. That's how we would get around. We actually got around with that more than we did mechanized vehicles with horses. What the fuck happens when we get rid of all of these animals and then suddenly one day the lights go out? What the hell do we rely on then, man? Because I got to tell you, the distinction between why the Europeans and Asians conquered the world and not the Native Americans is because the Native Americans had no animal husbandry whatsoever. They didn't have any animals here to tame. There weren't any, and the
Right.
Europeans had the horse, and they had the cow, and they had these various kind of work animals. Like, what the fuck would you even do without these
You
animals?
realize, okay, so you realize you can run like internal combustion engines off a magneto, right? And
Magneto.
you also realize, yeah, and you
What
also
is Magneto?
realize it's a way of generating spark. So it's different than just using a battery to generate spark. They don't usually, they never make them anymore. It's a really old technology, but you can look on Jay Leno's channel. It's really interesting. A lot of old cars used a magneto, and
That's
on
an
top of that,
wait. That's an ignition system.
yeah, that's an ignition system, and the
Yeah. So what?
batteries are extremely easy to produce, like lead acid. Even if lights went off, it's super easy to create lead acid batteries. So
Let me ask a question while I'm here. Who in the hell, besides what he has researched, knows this? How many people are going to die not knowing this information? But you know what everybody knows how to do right now? Turn the lights on. You know, if the grid goes down, people would know that in history in that they've read about and learned in school, they used horses and mules and donkeys and blah blah so forth and so on to plow fields, to travel from place to place, used them as currency. But what he's talking about is this off system that was used at one time in history that obviously didn't take off because it wasn't efficient enough to be the dominant process. How many people know this? Even Andrew had to look it up just then.
I don't know. And like,
What does
there's
that
also
have to do
steam
with
engines.
anything?
Well, you're saying if the lights go out,
How
we
the fuck
wouldn't
do you
be
think you're
able
going to get
run any
gas,
machinery.
bro?
Exactly.
Where do you think you get gas? You have to put gas in a combustion engine because you have to have something to fucking combust. Gas or alcohol. Alcohol is going to require you to ferment
Well,
some type of
look,
vegetation.
Mhm.
That's
they
going to
could
require
figure
you
it
to have
out.
vegetation you grow from animals.
Well,
Like what?
look, if they could figure it out in the 19th century, I'm sure we could figure
They
it out
didn't.
today.
Listen, that's what I'm telling you. Okay, this is what I'm explaining to you. We had a
Like,
world
by the way,
war.
there's steam engines.
World War One. Okay, in World War One, yeah, we had steam engines in World War One. All supply was done virtually by horse in World War One. That's pretty
Yep.
modern. Okay, and there was more. I think there was more horses used in that war than any other war. By the way, I think so. Now, don't quote me on that, but because I could be wrong, but I think it's true. I think that's the case, or
Well,
more than you could imagine were used by that. And it's like, no, man, you can't get an old steam. What are you going to do with a steam engine in a car? Is your wife or girlfriend going to like load the fucking coal into the engine like
Exactly.
go down the road? Like that's not how it works.
well, they can stay at home and maybe wear a burqa when they go outside.
Yeah, but this is my point. Is like I don't even understand why you would want to get rid of animal husbandry because ultimately, like,
Look, dude, I don't see a future where the entire world's energy grid stops working. I don't know why
Okay.
we'd assume.
Just like you wouldn't your evolution concept. I just can't see why this banana became a human being. I don't see a system that works that way. Right?
We should just keep killing animals because what if we lose electricity?
do you know what that there has been electromagnetic pulses from the sun before, which have knocked the entire grid out, and
Yep.
that there is scientific predictors that such an electromagnetic pulse is in our future coming soon to a galaxy near you.
All right. That's going to be that one. So I enjoyed that. I hope you enjoyed it. And I enjoyed, I mean, you know, of course, I think some of the stuff that was said is stupid, but at the same time, I enjoy these videos and I enjoy watching them. Till next time, see ya.